Alright, welcome back for episode 3 of A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. We've just beaten the Eastern Palace, which is the first dungeon in the game, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second one. Just like the past video, I'm going to beat the entire dungeon within one video, or at least I'm gonna aim for that. If I feel it's dragging on way too long, like if we're getting up to the half-hour mark, then I'm gonna cut it off, but it was suggested to me by one of my subscribers named DefaultXR that I do videos longer than 10 minutes, and I think that's probably a good idea. 10 minutes is rather short. You can't get a lot of progress done in some games in that amount of time, so I just figured that I would try to base my episode length based on actual accomplishments within the game I'm playing. So instead of aiming for 10 to 15 minutes, I'll just aim for, like if it's Yoshi's Island, I'll do an entire world, or maybe half a world, or I'll do a dungeon, or at least a significant portion of a dungeon in a Zelda game, because later on, if my memory about this game serves me correctly, we're not going to be able to do some of these dungeons, and all the traveling in between, in one neat little episode, especially if I want to do side quests and stuff, which I very likely do. There's not many in this game, really. Most of the side quests, quote, they would fall under the purview of, just being, just being for pieces of heart, hunting down pieces of heart. Not really a lot of actual NPCs giving you quests or anything. I just remembered that the second dungeon is not on Death Mountain, that's the third dungeon. I completely forgot about the desert dungeon, which, now that I've remembered that's the second dungeon, I'm confident in saying that I can complete that in one video. If it was Death Mountain, maybe not, but I know the desert mountain, or the desert, I know the desert dungeon quite well, and it's not very long. So we're going to use our newly minted Pegasus boots to go and get a special item from this library here. Dash into the wall there, into the bookcase, and we can pick up the Book of Medora, which is going to allow us to translate ancient Hylian texts that we would not be able to read. As far as I know, this is only used maybe 3 or 4 times in the entire game. It's not a very prominent item, which it's kind of a strange choice to make it take up an inventory slot. I feel like in a modern Zelda game, like one after this, Ocarina of Time and such, that would not be an actual usable item. It would just be in the background of your inventory, like, hey, you can use this, but we're not going to make you assign it to a slot or anything. But in A Link to the Past, they decided to assign it to a slot, have it be an actual usable item, despite the fact that, like I said, it's used to get into the second dungeon, and then I think the only other times are to translate certain stone tablets that give you magic powers. If there's another use for the Book of Medora, I don't remember it. Unlike in other Zelda games, you don't need to get a bomb bag. Just by having collected bombs and arrows, you have them. Unlike with arrows, though, you can use the bombs without another item, whereas for the arrows you need a bow, of course. This guy jumps out of the grass, and if we slash it beneath him as he lands, he's going to give us some rupees and call us a thief. Oh, it was a heart that time. I guess maybe he can have multiple different kinds of items in his possession. While we're here, we're going to stop by and set something up for later in the game. We're going to pull a switch in this little micro mini dungeon and get something for it. First, we're going to push these blocks in a way that gets us these bombs, because you can never have enough bombs, really. Sorry, I'm really trying not to cough, but it's just, I mean, I've been sick for so long, it's getting real old for me, so sometimes I just can't hold it in. I know that one of these will just make an explosion happen. Okay. Or no, I think it spawns more of those enemies. Those red rotating enemies I think are called anti-fairies. Because when they hit you, they're going to both cause damage and sap magic energy from your magic meter, which is just no good. These guys are assholes. Speaking of assholes, this guy with a bow. Just die already. I mean, what is he living for? He's an evil possessed guard who's been taken over by Aghanim. He doesn't have a life. He doesn't have a family. After all, there's only like one house in this game aside from Kakariko Village. And all the houses in Kakariko Village are filled. So where do the guards live? Do they live at the castle? There don't seem to be any living quarters there either. We're gonna pray to the gods using our Book of Medora with our bright pink hair shining in the sunlight of the desert. It's really weird. In the official artwork for this game, Link has brown hair, brownish hair like he does in most Zelda games. But in the actual sprite, it is very clearly hot pink. It's an interesting choice. But I can see why they never did it again. Hot pink hair is not marketable. Not in most senses. I guess, I mean, of course some anime characters have hot pink hair, but I guess especially in the United States, I would not consider anime to be exactly marketable. So, still fits the definition. And we didn't use our fairy last dungeon, so we still have that on hand. So, I'm going to try to make it so that if I do ever die, you're not going to actually have to watch me trek through the same things all over again. Because that would be quite boring, if you ask me. Like, yeah, it'd be a realistic portrayal of what it's like to play the game, but I mean, nobody's gonna have fun watching me do the same shit over and over again. And I'm good enough at this game that if I just pay some attention, I'm not gonna die all that often anyway. I think some of the bosses in this game give me trouble. There's one that's like a moth, and you have to fight it surrounded by spikes while the floor is constantly moving underneath you, and that can get a little tricky. I might die a couple of times then, but this early in the game especially, I hope I'm not gonna be dying left and right. BMO statues, when they establish eye contact with you, they'll shoot their giant laser beam. Oh, we're too early here. I was in the wrong room. I have to track down the big key before I can get in there. I've always wondered what those little pincer things are called. They're kind of like Zoras, but for sand. Because Zoras will just sit in the water and they'll shoot laser beams out of their mouths at you. These come out of the sand to do the same exact thing. I think if I go out here I can get a... No. Right? No, that's later on. I know that if you go out one of the outside exits you can get a piece of heart. I'm not sure if it's that exit or not, so we're not going to chance it for now. I can always go back and get it later. As you can see, I don't know my exact way around this. I mean, if I had just played this game, I would know. But at the same time, if I had just played this game before doing this Let's Play, I'd be bored. I don't want to do the same games over and over again. Why would I want to do that? So obviously there's a key that's eluding us here. And I think we can use the small key that we're going to be finding pretty soon. We can use that to get the big key, and we can use that to get the dungeon item, which I'll keep a secret for now. Aha. Gather this and go talk to our old pal Sahasrara. We have practically cellular communication with our telepathy. Why does everyone in this game have telepathy anyway? Why is that I mean, in later Zelda games, they never talk about people having telepathy. Zelda never uses telepathy anymore. But in this game, it's like everyone and their goddamn grandma has telepathy. Except Link. I guess he has the power to receive telepathy. Is that a power in itself? No, it's really only a power if you have the telepathy, I think. Well, yeah, because if you had to have a power to receive telepathy, then telepathy itself wouldn't be a very good power. Let's see how many times I can say the word telepathy in one video. That'll be fun for everyone. Oh yeah, look at that skillful dodge. We've already got the big key. The actual boss's lair, though, is not in this part of the dungeon. It's a weird little thing. This dungeon is actually separated into two miniature parts, and we're going to have to go outside and get to the second part. First, we need the dungeon item, though, in order to be able to get out there. I've never really seen much of a point to killing all the enemies. Just doesn't seem like an optimal strategy. I mean, you go around slashing everything, especially when you have such a weak sword. You're not going to get things done very quickly. So I just got the power gloves, which will allow us to pick up both small rocks that are on the side of the fields and also the large boulders. And that'll allow us to unblock a lot of passageways throughout the game. We can only pick up gray rocks. Black rocks have to be picked up with a different item that you get later on. And I think there's just fairies in here, but yeah, might as well double check. And I'm gonna get shot in the face. Nope. So we go outside here, and I'm glad I went ahead and saved that for after when we got the power gloves, because, I mean, saves us a trip. This vulture's gonna start spinning around us, and we already have half of a piece of heart. I'm sure a lot of other Let's Players and just general players would have a lot more than that by now, but as I've said in Yoshi's Island, I am not anything resembling a completionist when it comes to games. I just play at my own leisure and find secrets and items when I come across them, but otherwise I'm not anal about that kind of thing. Oh god, the infamous spinning tiles. Let's get the fuck out of here. There's some rooms in the game where those guys will just keep coming and coming, and the only way to get through the room is to wait for them to use themselves up, for there to be almost no tile left on the floor. Only then the door will open for you. Luckily that was not such a time. This dungeon is fairly easy. In fact, I'm having even less trouble with it than I anticipated I would. I figured, like, I was prepared for this to take more than one video for me to have to chop this in half, but man, I'm just breezing through here. I would be surprised if this was any longer than our last video, which I think turned out to be about 18 minutes when everything was said and done. So we light all the torches here, and we move back to the secret wall, and that'll reveal the boss door. If we can get this red guy off our asses. Might as well fill up on items here, get that extra heart in there. But this boss isn't too challenging. It's I want to say its name is Lanmola. It's a bunch of giant worms that leap out of the ground. As you see, they shoot dirt diagonally from their position as they fly out, so that'll hurt you. And also, of course, contact with them hurts. Gotta slash them in the head as they fly through the air. Kind of weird. The first two bosses in this game are just a horde of enemies. It's not just one singular boss. I wonder why that is. Maybe they figured that throwing a few weak-ish bosses at you would be easier than throwing one really strong boss at you right off the bat. Because a lot of games, or a lot of bosses later on in this game, like the moth one that I mentioned earlier, those can get surprisingly hard. Especially by modern Zelda standards. I'm not normally one to complain about modern Zelda games, but there's a problem with the more recent games just being way too easy. I think I recently replayed Wind Waker as the HD version for the Wii U. I'm one of the 5 people in the United States who owns a Wii U right now, and I recently replayed that, and I just breezed through that game. I don't know what it was, but I had less difficulty with that game than I've ever had with the Zelda game, so things just get way too easy, especially with combat. It seems like once you get an adequate number of hearts, you can just plow through everyone in modern Zelda games, but in this game, even when you have the full 20 hearts, I mean, that moth boss that I was talking about can get pretty tough. And we've actually died. So, lucky for you guys, like I said, I have a fairy on me, so you don't have to watch me go through that entire dungeon again. I wouldn't have had to redo anything, but I would have had to re-trek through. And I actually haven't saved. So I should probably save after this episode's over. And we finished that guy off. I wish we'd been able to do that without dying, but hey, at least we had a fairy on us. Now we have the Pendant of Wisdom, I believe, is the blue one? I might be wrong on that. The colors might be flipped. It's the Pendant of Power. Normally in Zelda games, green is Wisdom, or green is Courage, blue is Wisdom, and red is Power. But I guess in this that motif wasn't established quite yet. So, I mean, it's an early Zelda game. This was only the third one. And back then, I mean, they definitely weren't thinking about overarching mythology and story yet. They were still just looking to build a game. Once we get out of the desert here, away from these fucking vultures, we're gonna go ahead and call it an episode. And next time when we come back, we will climb Death Mountain, which will result in us having the third pendant already. I'm kind of going through this at a faster pace than I expected. First, we're going to go ahead and rob this guy. He tells us to check out a cave in East Hylia. I wonder if we can go do that yet. If we can, I might do that next episode, but since we've robbed this guy and we've completed the second dungeon, it's time to call it an episode. So, thanks for tuning in to episode 3. I am going to have more consistent uploads from now on because I'm going to record in batches like I'm doing today. These first 3 episodes have all been one big batch. I might even do a couple more and maybe some Yoshi's Island, so we're not going to have any more long stretches without videos, guys. I've got the plan under control. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.